Hi, this is Kirin with Free Church Resources. This is part 3 of our training, Conversational Facilitating. Now, if you haven't watched video part 1 or video part 2, please go back and watch it. If you guys remember, in part 1, we talked about the importance of conversational facilitating, why we need to do it, and the goals of conversational facilitating. And part 2, I showed you guys a very practical way by using Free Church Resources to actually do Bible studies or lead out small groups. In this video, part 3, I'm going to give you 10 tips on how to actually be a good conversational facilitator. Now, before we go into our tips, let's review our goal for conversational facilitating. The goal is to engage every member or every participant by giving them opportunities, by organizing the conversations. These top 10 tips are revolving around these goals. Okay, our goal again is to engage by giving them opportunities, by organizing the conversation. Tip number 1, encourage your participants by affirming them. Because we're having a conversation, we want people engaging and talking. We want to do that by affirming what they have actually said. So you can do this in a couple of ways. Number 1 is when they are talking, you give them your undivided attention. I see this so many times where small group leaders, they tell people to talk and they're like looking at their phone or they're looking at their Bible study material or other things. But instead, look at them and you can acknowledge them by nodding your head or saying things like, wow, or that's interesting. And also saying at the end, hey, thank you for sharing that, or thank you for your input. Tip number 2, summarize the points that the participant or the member have made. There's 2 reasons for this. Number 1 is you're basically telling them, I heard you, I understand you. Another good reason why you should do this is so that you're not misrepresenting their points, because you might have heard something, but maybe they were trying to say something else. So by actually summarizing, they get an opportunity to say, oh yeah, that's exactly what I meant. Or, oh no, that's not what I meant. I meant this. And you could have a better conversation or less miscommunication that way. Number 3, call their names whenever you ask them a question. Call out their names, but also tell them that they don't have to answer. So, for example, depending on what kind of audience you have, there's going to be times where it's going to be silent and it's going to be awkward. Sometimes this happens because they don't want to say something first. Maybe they feel like, oh, someone else is going to talk. I want to give them time to talk. But this sometimes creates a time where it's really awkward and no one is really talking. So what you can do, you can engage different participants by actually calling their name. But you also tell them that they don't necessarily have to say it. So for example, I could say, hey Tim, what do you think? Oh, by the way, you don't have to say anything if you don't have anything. Number 4, encourage the quiet people. There's going to be always people in your group where they don't feel comfortable speaking out loud, or they're soft-spoken, or maybe they don't have much to say. That's fine, but you don't want to leave them in the dust. You want them to know that you acknowledge that they are there. So if they haven't talked in a while, still call out their name and say, you don't have to say anything, but do you have anything you want to say? Or when they do talk, you can encourage them by asking them more questions. So you go, wow, that's an interesting idea. Tell me more about that. Oh, what did you mean by this? It encouraged the people who are maybe soft-spoken or they're more shy for them to explore more. Tip number 5, discourage people who talk too much. As I told you before, there's going to be people who don't talk very much, but there's going to be in your group people who talk a lot and they can't stop. They just, every single time you have discussion, or even when you're reading, they just want to talk. And you don't want to discourage that, because that's the whole point of the Bible study. It's for people to be engaged, but perhaps they just enjoy talking, or they lack common sense that they don't realize that they're over talking, or they're not giving other people opportunity. And you don't want that. You don't want one person keeping everybody hostage by just talking. And so what you do is you try your best to not ask additional questions. So you just go, oh, thank you for your input. Let's go to another person right away. That's a good way to discourage talkers who talk too much. Tip number 6, bring it back to the topic. As you're having discussion, there's going to be times where it goes this way, and you go totally into the gutter, and you don't want that. You don't want the conversation to go off stray. You want to, again, like the illustration I used in part 1, you are a guardrail. You want to make sure that the bowling ball doesn't go to the gutter. You want to make sure the conversation stays on point. Now, there's going to be some things that people bring up that's going to be very, very good. But what you want to say is things like, man, this is a great discussion. That's a great question. But can we talk about it after? Or can we talk about it next week? Or can we finish this up first? And then maybe we could come back with that question after we finish the small group. Maybe we could have a one-on-one. Because again, there's going to be, maybe it is a good topic, but you don't want to spend 2, 3, 4 hours in the small group discussion. And you don't want to lose other people who are not very interested in that question. Number 7, be okay with silence. I think this is one of the hardest things for a lot of people who are doing the conversational facilitating. They ask question and they ask and ask, but nobody seems to answer. And so what I see a lot of facilitators do is they go, oh, I guess no one has anything to say, or I guess this is a dumb question, or am I the only one who's thinking here? Comments like that is not going to help. You just have to understand that sometimes some questions are very deep, and so they just need some time to think. And so it's okay. Be okay with silence. I know as a facilitator, even 2-3 seconds feels like 2-3 minutes. But again, try to relax and just count 1, 2, 3, count 5, 10, 15 seconds, and it's okay. And if nobody talks, then you can call someone's name. Tip number 8, ask questions rather than only answering. When somebody asks you a question, there's going to be a temptation to just answer right away. But instead of doing that, just say, oh, wow, that's a great question. Oh, what do you guys think? So again, you're involving other people into your conversation as well. Number 9, if you don't know the answer to a question, just say, I don't know. It's really easy to feel the burden you have to know everything. But we don't know everything. There's going to be times where we don't know the answer to a question, and that's totally fine. Just say, I don't know. It's much better to say, I don't know, than try to come up with a lame answer or try to come up with a fake answer. Just say, I don't know, but I'll find out and I'll get back to you next week, or I'll get back to you later. Tip number 10, if the question is a difficult question or a vulnerable question, let them know ahead of time and go first. Some of these questions that we're going to discuss in our free church resources question guides, it's very deep, it's very personal. So what you do is you let them know, because they're going to feel that way. But when you say, hey, I know this is a deep question, or I know this might be an uncomfortable question for you, when you say that, you're acknowledging them, you're empathizing with them, and you're telling them, hey, I know this is not an easy question. And then afterwards, you actually share first. Because once you share first, then they can say, oh, he's actually or she's actually willing to share, then I think I can share as well. So again, these are just 10 tips that I found helpful to me as I am doing my conversational facilitating. Maybe you have better tips. You can comment below and actually share with the whole community. I hope this training video has been helpful for you. If you have any questions or comments, comment below, or you could go to our website and contact us at freechurchresources.us.